Hey guys, so today I want to go over the new build I've been playing, and that is Gemling Stat Stacker. So this is not a new build whatsoever. A ton of people are playing this build. It's been covered plenty of times, but I want to go over my variant, which I do think is definitely one of the best ways you can play this character, because a lot of people aren't using this helm as zero sustain, and it's just absolutely insane. This character, I see people going to CI, full ES. I just don't think it's worth it. You sacrifice way too much life when you could just equip this helmet and have insane HP, insane energy shield, mind over matter with a lot of mana. So yeah, I want to have this full build guide for this character. As you can see, it's extremely fast, it's a ton of damage. I'll show some boss and DPS as well. It's absolutely one of the best characters you can play currently, and it's confirmed it won't be nerfed until next league, which is probably like 1 or 2 months away. So here's the boss DPS showcase. You can get way higher DPS than what I show here. I'm just in full magic fine gear and focusing on speed, which I'll go over in a second, but it's still extremely overkill damage. This build has absolutely a stupid amount of damage. So yeah, what is this character? What is the Gemling Stat Stacker? I want to go over the full build guide for this video. I will make another video later on going over this multi-mirror version I'm currently playing, but I do have a full build guide on Mobilytics, like always, going over everything you need to know about the build. I know the first question I'm going to get is this budget friendly? The answer is no, not my version. My version is for the more mid and higher end. If you do want a full budget guide, I do recommend this guy right here, Ashamar. He has a nice 16 divine full budget stat stacking build guide. Just keep in mind, it won't have the same performance as my build. I'm not going to make a budget build for this. I'm not really interested. If you do want one, go check out his channel. He has a full budget guide. My budget, this build is probably roughly 70 to 100 divines. In the Uber endgame, it's going to be quite expensive as you're using stuff like Ashamentus, which is not needed. Like I said, I'm going to go for everything in this video. So yeah, just to get that question out of the way, this is not a budget guide. It will require a certain amount of divines. You can definitely play this for around 70 to 100 divines though and have really good performance. So to start off, I do also have the full level and setup variant here as well. Do read the notes. So if you want to level up this build, it's a full twink setup. This only works with twink gear, so if you don't have all these uniques, it won't work. But yeah, leveling is really smooth and really fast. I did campaign like 6 hours while doing a bunch of trades. You can definitely do it way faster than that. It was really fun and fast. So very good leveling setup. Feel free to check it out. I go over the notes here as well, like I said. Now the main difference of my Gemling Stat Stacker compared to pretty much everyone else is using a zero sustain. So I originally got this build idea or build concept from Modern PoE, another Path of Exile streamer. His build is a little bit different than mine. I did take to another route, but we do share a similar interest in this helmet, where it's just extremely strong on this character, and it's kind of what this character is built around and what makes it so different compared to other stat stackers and why I'm so ridiculously tanky. What does this helmet do? So the main line here is 29% of maximum life as maximum energy shield. This is a ton of flat energy shield. In fact, this is more flat energy shield than what you would get from a perfect body armor chest. This gives roughly, for my character, 1200 flat energy shield. If you see I take this off, I lose practically all of my ES. So yeah, this is giving me 4700 energy shield, and absolutely an insane amount. On top of that, you can also get an extremely useful spirit enchant, allowing you to use more auras and not have to sacrifice your amulet for spirit, so you can then use Ashamentus. So this is the main difference between my build and all the others, is using this helmet for an extreme defensive layer that you otherwise cannot get. It's also why I'm not going CI. I don't see a reason to go CI, because why click CI to lose 4k life? Doesn't really make sense to me. Keep your life and keep your energy shield, and also have mind over matter as well. So yeah, this character is extremely tanky, and the character still is not fully set up. My endgame version is going to have 7,000 energy shield, over 4k life, and over like 3.5k mana, giving you a effective HP pool of roughly 20,000, because this energy shield is doubled by Grim Feast. So yeah, that's the main concept on the build. Now let's go over every single piece. So we have an 8% attack speed pillar corruption. This is the best corruption you can get for the highest speed with attack speed runes. Like I said, if we want to go fast, the higher attack speed you have with Tempest Flurry, I have 28.5, the faster you'll go. So it's very important to have very high attack speed if you want to go fast. Now, of course, you're going to get very high attack speed and very high investment. Next is the Breach Ring. So Breach Ring, I want rarity. I have so much overkill damage that I can even sacrifice attributes here for more rarity. If you want, you can go triple attribute suffix. I actually did POB this earlier and I'll test it in game. A mirror tier breach ring with triple attributes on the suffix and triple flat doubles my tooltip. That's how much damage I'm sacrificing for rarity. So do keep that in mind. You can have double my amount of damage if you went for the mirror to your breach ring, but I want rarity. And as you saw in the clips, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to focus more on damage when I can already kill Zesh in 1 second, and every single map mod in the game is free. I do every single map combo in the game. Stuff like element threshold and elemental resist combo together, I can easily do. So I really don't see any reason to go for more damage. So yeah, I am going for that rarity. And if you are wondering, I am at 297% rarity. I can get a little bit over 300% of my endgame. I did want to make sure this character was a magic find character, as I didn't want to play with 0% rarity, but I am sacrificing quite a bit of DPS by, grabbing rarity, because rarity is a suffix and it does compete with attributes. Next is the Moya Invictus. So this has 5% increased attributes and 10% all res. This is best on the build and how you pretty much solve all your resistance. It's a ton of resist on here, and all soul cores or elemental resist until I'm resist capped. If you are wondering, I am slightly over resist cap with 50% chaos res. I've never been close to 90 chaos damage, so 50% does seem good enough to me. You can probably go down from this as well. Conjurer's Touch just mirrors my other ring, so it's the same as this. And then Ingenuity Belt. So Ingenuity Belt, how it works with Conjurer's Touch, essentially, when you have these 2 items, you just 4 times this ring. You don't need Conjurer's Touch, it's completely overkill. You can just use a second breach ring. But yeah, this belt is just best in slot. I do love Headhunter. You really want attributes, and the Ingenuity Belt just gives you a ton of attributes and also a ton of rarity. It's really hard to get rarity elsewhere in this build, as it's a ton of uniques. Ash Tremendous, of course, with blurred motion. Now there is budget options, I'll go over in the guide as well, but yeah. And it was some action, so this is where you get all your damage without Hoa. You do absolutely no damage, so yeah, these gloves are mandatory for the build to work, and it's the reason why it's so strong. Boosted rarity, some movement speed, mana, dex, chaos res. The only important stats on here is the dexterity, chaos res, and rarity, I would say. Nothing else is needed. You don't need movement speed. Movement speed does not affect your Tempest Flurry speed whatsoever. It just helps when you're moving around a little bit, because sometimes you do get stuck on walls. When you get stuck on walls, you have to move around it. So yeah, I do like movement speed. It's not needed, but it is very nice to have on boots. Then of course, Melted Maelstrom. This is how you solve all your mana issues on this build. Press the flask, instantly get full mana. It's extremely strong for this build, or any minor mana build for that fact. Olaf's Resolve, not needed whatsoever. I practically never have to price my life flask. Don't use this, don't pay for it, it's not needed. Then last but not least, my skill tree. So I will go over to Mobile Lytics Guide instead, because you shouldn't follow this exact skill tree. It's because I'm using a certain Megalomaniac. So if you don't have this, you can't follow the skill tree. But the one thing I do want to show here is the Against the Darkness with the From Nothing jewel. So you get a From Nothing from Residence, then you get all these extremely high value nodes. Spaghettification, which is 7% increased attributes, and then just, this node's not good, but since you're using it Against the Darkness, you take it for the 4% increased dex and intelligence. This is the best Against the Darkness. The second best one is dex strength, and the third best one is strength intelligence, so buy whatever you can afford. So yeah, for the rest of this video, I'm going to go over the Mobile Lytics Guide, as I can easily explain. It also has all the notes listed down below here. Make sure to read everything. I went over very in detailed everything about this build, all the skill links, all the gem swaps, all the passive tree decisions, all unique jewels, attributes, very important stuff. So let's do a quick overview real quick. Like I said, I have the endgame and Uber endgame setup. Uber endgame setup is what I'm playing. This is very expensive. The endgame version, like I said, you can play it for around 70 to 100 divines. That's roughly where this budget is at, and probably what I'm going to talk about for the remainder of this video. So yeah, first things first, you do want a pillar with a 8% increased attack speed enchantment. The other option, a cheaper option, is 12% increased dance for 10 strength corruption. This is like 1 divine, while the 8% increased enchantment is like 10 divines. Or you can buy a 3 socket pillar and use 3 attack speed runes in it. This is another option. Like I said, the reason you're using attack speed in your weapon is for maximum speed. Attack speed equals movement speed for this build. You do want a 0 disdain with 30 spirit. If you can't get one with 30 spirit, you'll have to drop precision. Now, the only thing precision does is essentially give you more value from Falcon Dive, 1% increased attack speed per 250 accuracy. It's not a big deal whatsoever if you don't get a 30 spirit, it's 0 sustain. You only lose a small amount of attack speed, but it has been maxed, so if you do want to get that extra attack speed, do get a 30 spirit. Otherwise, 20 spirit is fine. On a way lower budget, you can also pick up a Black Sun Crest with the same corruption instead of a 0 disdain. Now this will make you way squishier, but it does give you a lot more stats, and it may help you out if you are playing on a really low budget. I've already talked about the chest and belt. I already talked about the rings. One thing on the ring I want to mention though is that you do want a source of flat fire damage somewhere. If you don't have a flat fire damage on a ring, you can get it from somewhere else, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, it is very important to have a flat fire damage source. The easiest place to get it is from the ring. If you don't have Melt and Maelstrom, you don't want to take Mind Over Matter. I do have two different skill trees here, one with Mind Over Matter and one without. So if you don't have Melt and Maelstrom, because it's like 20 divines or something, then you want to play the skill tree without Mind Over Matter, because playing Mind Over Matter without Melt and Maelstrom is really rough, as you get a 50% less mana recovery rate. Do not pick up Mind Over Matter until you get Melt and Maelstrom. Talking about the links real quick, so you're going to want Bullseye, Crescendo, Inspiration, Rage, and Martial Tempo. Rage is really nice to have because that more damage is also going to increase the damage of your heralds, which is majority of your clear. So you definitely do want to rage sword somewhere, and putting your Tempest Slurry is the easiest way to get it. If you do want more damage for clearing and don't care for attack speed that much, you can take out Bullseye for Primal Armaments from your Tempest spell. This will give you a lot more damage for that clear speed if you are lacking that DPS. Tempest spell, Primal Armaments, Overabundance, Lightning Pen, Close Combat, and Conk Effect. Tempest spell is insane amount of damage. You want to use it on bosses consistently. You want to use it on very tanky rares if you're very low DPS. I only ever have to press this versus a very tanky map boss, otherwise everything instantly dies at my budget level. But yeah, Tempest spell is extremely strong, and something to note here is that what Tempest spell actually does. So Tempest spell will deal more damage per elemental ailment on the bell. So it's very, very important to have multiple sources of elemental ailments. So Ignite, Shock, and Freeze. You really want to do all three. Freeze is very easy. You just get it from your Ice Bite. Shock, you have a ton of lightning damage. You're always going to shock. And then Ignite, you either have to get it from your ring, like I said earlier, or you're going to get it from your charged staff, and you're going to have Fire Infusion linked to your charged staff to have enough fire damage to ignite your bell. So yeah, those are your two ways to get fire, and you do want fire somewhere. So either Fire Infusion on your charged staff, which is the worst option, or Flat Fire on your ring. Then of course we have the typical Herald setup. So this is a standard Herald tech: Ice Bite, Cold Infusion, Glaciation, Ambush, Cold Pen, to make your Herald of Thunder freeze. I went over this a few times in my videos already. Just very strong Herald combination where it makes your Heralds chain off each other. And same thing for Herald of Ice, where you have Overcharge, Conduction, Magnifying Effect, Innervate, and Shock Siphon. But with Shock Siphon, your ES actually stays really high and consistently near full when doing these burning ground maps, so it's not as annoying. So I really do like to support, especially since your Heralds already have so much overkill damage. You don't really need another damage like on your Heralds on this build. This build just has absolutely insane Herald damage, and also Herald AoE as well. If you're running, I'm at 5.7 meters, which is absolutely an insane radius on Herald of Ice. Then for Charged Staff, I'm still messing around with this. I've seen a lot of setups, but I ended up with Lightning Exposure, Cold Exposure, Strip Away, Cone Strike, and Persistence. Now in the more budget version, you're going to be running Charged Staff. When you get to a really high-end setup, you no longer need Charged Staff. It's not worth pressing, it's not worth using it whatsoever. So I do take it off on the end game setup, the Uber end game. But at the start, you do want to press Charged Staff, as it does give a ton of extra DPS. And then with that is Combat Frenzy. Combat Frenzy is how you're going to generate power charges. So you generate power charges with this keystone right here, Resonance. Combat Frenzy gives frenzy charges, but with Resonance, you convert those frenzies into power charges, which then allows you to activate your Charged Staff ability. Now, like I said, the Uber endgame setup does not have to take this, but if you do need more damage, if you're not following the Uber endgame setup, you're following a more cheaper version, you too want to use Charged Staff. It's a ton of extra DPS. The last gem you'll use is Cast on Shock with Inspiration, Energy Retention, Impetus, and Eye of Winter. Now there is two inspirations here. This is for the Pinnacle Boss swap. So on Pinnacle Bosses, which I do explain it all down here, so make sure to read it. But essentially you swap Inspiration from your Tempest Slurry to Cast on Shock, and then you swap your Ice Bite from Herald of Thunder into Tempest Slurry, so you can still get that extra cold damage on bosses, which is a lot of DPS. So that's the swap you would do. Like I said, it's all explained down here. Do read this. It's very important on your boss swap, as it gives you a ton more DPS. So that's pretty much about it for all the skill gems. Now there is also a weapon swap, which again, I do go over in the guide. Essentially, your weapon swap is going to be a weapon that has 12% increased weapon damage for 5 strength corruption, and then 2 pen runes. This gives you the maximum amount of boss DPS. Now, I only do this weapon swap on Pinnacle bosses. If you're on way lower budget, you may have to do this for map bosses. It's very cheap weapon swap, very easy to get going, so you might as well just grab it. This also allows you to easily set up your auras without having to like hassle going to your, menu right here and like clicking off your Heart of Ice and then click on Combat Frenzy or whatever, right? Essentially, when I weapon swap, I immediately get my Cast on Shock and Combat Frenzy, and I disable my Heart of Ice and Heart of Thunder, as these do nothing versus bosses. This essentially allows for like a no hassle gameplay. When I'm doing an Uber boss, weapon swap, no problem, what's the issue, back to mapping, right? And if you're wondering how to do this, essentially all you have to do is click any of these skills, put Combat Frenzy as weapon swap 2, put Cast on Shock, weapon swap 2, then you go to your Heralds and put these as weapon swap 1. Same for like any other auras here. So I also have Grim Feast and weapon swap 1. Then when you swap, it'll automatically put on all your correct auras. So very easy, very nice, no hassle whatsoever. But the last thing I want to go over real quick in this video, and you should also read on the guide yourself, is attributes. So attributes, like I said, it's an attribute stacker. It's extremely important to know how these attributes work. I went over all the details here, describing what each attribute does and also what each item does to our attributes. And essentially what I want to go over is the attribute setups. So I have roughly 1200 dexterity, 687 intelligence, and 648 strength. So it's important to know what to do with your attributes. If you want full speed, you want to focus on dexterity, then roughly leave strength and intelligence equal. If you want more damage, then you focus on intelligence, then strength, then dexterity. If you want like a nice even character, you could just go all three even, roughly have like good damage, good HP, good defense. Strength gives defense essentially, dexterity gives pure speed, and intelligence gives you the most damage, and also does give mana, and mana is also mana regen. So that's how you want to set up your attributes. I do have some examples down here. Do make sure to read this. You can customize your own character, essentially, you know, build your own playthrough of what you want to do. Do you want more damage? Do you want more speed? Do you want more toughness? It's your choice. You can swap all these small nodes on the passive skill tree to decide what you want. On a lower budget, you probably cannot go all dex as you will need more damage. When you do get that higher budget, you can easily go all dex and get this, you know, insane movement speed. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. That's the whole character overview. I'll have another video later on go over my multi-mirror character, but I just want to make this video guide hopefully to explain the character in depth, and I'll have the full Mobilix guide linked down below. A ton of other people have played this character, but I did want to go over my version as this is a different take on it and also an extremely tanky version of this character as well. But yeah, that's about it.